Alright guys, welcome back to the Pedalboard series. So the next thing we're going to do, and I kind of forget where we left off, but hopefully I'm doing things in order here because things are progressing differently from where I'm filming to kind of what I want to show to what's actually going on here at home. So anyway, what we're going to do is I'm just going to pull up Reverb here. Reverb's a nice, reliable site for music, gear, and things like that. I've gotten quite a few things, actually, when we go through the part of the series where I demo each pedal. I'll kind of show you where I found them and how I found them and stuff like that. So anyway, today we're going to talk about cable routing, and let me just go ahead and pull up the cables I found, and I'll show them to you in person as well. So EBS is the only one I found that makes these flat patch cables, and these are very, very low profile and high quality, and I needed low profile because when I flip you around in a second, you'll see, and you may have seen this on the first video, how close some of the things are on the board where I really needed tight clearances and things like that. So you can get your pancake style connectors or your Georgels. I haven't had any good luck with Georgel. It seems like the diameter is just slightly different on the plug, and so it'll actually pull out of different effects that you're using, in my experience. I know a lot of people use them and like them, but I needed to switch to something different. So anyway, the way you're going to figure out what you need, so you can either go to EBS's website or whoever's website you're going with and see what lengths are available. And EBS is from Sweden, so a lot of their stuff is in metric. But we'll look here. So these are actually listed in inches in some cases. But you have a 10 centimeter, which is about 4 inches it looks like. You have a 7 inch, which is 18 centimeters. A 28 centimeter, where's that one going to be? There's our 58 right here. 58 centimeter or 22 inch. Oh, let me get out of that. I could not find the other one, but it's 28 centimeters. So anyway, find the lengths that are available, and there's two ways that you can figure out what you're going to end up needing. So I'm going to flip you around and I'll kind of show you how I came up with what lengths I need, and we'll work on getting this thing wired up. Okay, so what I did, and actually I'm going to give you both ways here, but what I did is just took a piece of string and I figured out where I need to go on my bypass strip, or if you're not using a bypass strip, you'll just go from one effect to the next. And there are different things online that tell you what the general order should be of your effects. I'll pull up my little diagram here in a second and show you that. But you want to figure out what lengths you need, so I just took a string and kind of measured from, let's say, the input here over to wherever it goes here, and then say the output here back to the return here, and everything like that. Or tuner, for example, has a tuner out, so that was just from here up to here. If you want it to route a certain way, make sure you measure including that special route it's going to take. Like on my DI up here, I want to go from my output here around the inside and then up and over, instead of going around the outside, because I think it's going to look nice to have all the cables kind of hidden from the perimeter of the board. So these things over here, I want to run this way instead of this way, if that makes sense. So I actually have a pile of cables here, and we'll go ahead and start getting some things wired up. So one thing about these, I had mentioned that Georgel seemed to kind of slip out because the diameter might be slightly less, and we can check that in the future with a digital caliper, but these EBS cables really hold on well, and I like that. So grab my pile of cables here. There you have it. This should be everything we need. I ordered these a couple weeks ago. I have not wired things up yet, but I'm going to kind of show you guys the order that I came up with and why, and we'll get things going. Alright guys, so I've got a couple documents here we'll pull up. Let's see here. Actually, let's start here. So if you search for effect pedal order, there are a number of sites that'll give you the conventional wisdom effect pedal order, but this is the typical recommended way to do things, and you can always experiment, and a lot of the sites will tell you that. Where I got my information was here on justinguitar.com, or yeah, justinguitar.com, to move my face. And this will tell you, so we'll just look through here, order of effects. So you want to start with your tuner. In my case, my tuner has its own separate button out of the signal chain, so we're not worried about tuner, but typically you would start with your tuner. Next, they want your wah or phaser. The closest thing I have to a wah or phaser is my Xerograph Deluxe, which is a low-pass filter, which kind of gives you a phasery wah, auto wah type sound. Next would be the compressor, which is my Smoothie. And then they recommend overdrive. I don't really have overdrive, I just have a light overdrive on my All Things Equal boost. So we'll look at that. Next, EQ. I don't really have EQ. Any pitch pedals, so that would be my Octaver that I don't have yet, but hopefully soon. That would be next. And then, this is kind of tricky because they want level pedals later, but I have a combined overdrive and boost pedal. So that's one case where you could try that in a couple different spots and see how it goes. One thing I do know is my Synth Voice Deluxe recommends having a boosted signal ahead of it, but not a dirty signal, so that's kind of tricky. Whether you are going to not use the dirt and just flip that switch ahead of it, or put it behind it and you can use the dirt and you have to find your volume another way, like with a volume pedal or something. And then we have tremolo with our TapaWhirl next in line, and then any delays or reverbs, which I don't have. But that's just a rough idea, and there's all kinds of information around on that. So next, we'll just take a look at what I came up with for my order. Let's see if I can find it here. And this will include my effect pedal order, but also the lengths of cables that I came up with that I needed. And remember from EBS, with these flat patch cables, they offered 4 sizes, 10, 18, 28, and 58 centimeters. So you see those listed there, that's how many of each I needed. And then I actually made my order, as well as the input and output for that pedal of what length I needed, and then just counted them up. So the order I came up with, and I'm going to experiment with this and change things around if needed, but I came up with compression, then my boost, the octave, the filter, then the tremolo, and volume pedal actually at the end. So that's something that's kind of unique. Reason being is I already have my master bypass kill switch at the beginning, so I wanted my volume towards the end, but again, we'll see how that goes. So that I could use it after all the effects to control if something gets out of whack that way instead of at the beginning. But I might change my mind there. So anyway, let's hop out of this and we'll take a look at some cables and start getting things laid out. So just like that, I've got my cables laid out. Here are the 10s, the 18s, 28s, and 58s, and then this is my special TRS cable in, I believe, a 28 centimeter length, excuse me, for the Xerograph Deluxe expression control. So what we'll do is I'll refer back to that diagram, as well as my diagram here of what the looper is for loop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, as well as the in, out, and tuner. So we're going to want to orient that in a way that matches the way it's sitting here, which would actually be upside down like so. So you can see there, our label matches there, and then our power jack is right there and matches that. So let's just take a look on screen at what loop 1 was, and we'll get that pedal wired up. Okay, looks like loop 1, or the first pedal, is our compressor. As of now, we can always change that later. So for that we need a 28 and an 18. So I'm going to grab a 28 here and an 18, and I'll flip you around and we'll get that wired. Looking at the diagram, we're just going to go send, return on the first 2 available jacks in a row, and I believe our return is going to be the shorter, the 18. So we'll go back here to our return, plug that in, and then that's going to run right over here to our output. Remember that outputs go to returns and inputs go to sends. And then our send right next to that, and that's going to run around and up. And I could go either way. I could go up between there and there, or up right away here and over. I think I'm going to go this way. What I'd like to do, and you'll find this on any recommended websites and things like that, is you want your audio not to intersect your power, because that's a good way to get power noises mixed in with your audio, like a 60 cycle hum or a ground loop or things like that. So we want to try to keep all of our audio, for one thing, up on top, so you won't see me putting any holes and running the audio underneath by the power supply and back up. But also we're going to try to keep all the audio kind of on its own over here to the center and left, and then we're going to run our power hopefully to the upper right, and we'll just see how that works. Okay, next in order, I believe, is the all things equal, but I'm going to need to take a look at that. Yep, next is the all things equal, and that's a pair of 18s. So we'll grab 2 of our 18s here. The next loop over is directly to the left as we're looking at it. So it's going to be the next 2 jacks starting with the send. So we can actually move our Xerograph out of the way right now. So we're going to go with our send into the input of the all things equal. One-handed here. Oh, come on. And then our return would be the next jack. And I should add, something I'm going to do when we set this for real is turn these downward so that the cables run against the board instead of running up. It'll just be a little bit neater. But just for demonstration purposes, we're going to do it quick. Okay, take a look at what's next in order. Next would be the Synth Voice, which I don't have yet, but that would be a pair of 10s. So I just grabbed those off the pile, and that's going to be loop 3, which kind of makes a bridge between 2 and 4. So the send is going to be right above our return of loop 2, and then the return will be right next to that. So we have our send here, and like I mentioned, I'm going to route these differently later. But that would go to what would be our input right there, and then our return next to that would go to what would be our output right there. Up next would be the Xerograph Deluxe, and so I'm just going to flop these unused Synth Voice cables forward. Xerograph Deluxe would be loop 4, so the send for that is right below loop 3. See there? And then the return is right next to that, and that's a pair of 10s as well. So we'll go right below where we just were back here. That's our send into the input. And these are probably going to have to swing the other way, just for length. And then our return would be the output. So that goes there. And then this will run around right next to where we just were as our return. Okay, real quick, we'll take care of the tuner. I know that that one is our last 18. So if we find tuner here, that's right on the bottom on the far side. So we'll plug in that and run it right up along here. One thing about these cables is they're just a little bit stiff still from being in packaging for so long. So I'm going to lay them all out flat and just let them kind of relax before I finalize everything. Okay, next up I believe would be our TapaWhirl, because we're down to the last two pedals and I know volume was last. So that'll be 5. That's the top left 2, and sends are on the right as you're looking down. Returns are on the left. And I'm not certain on length. I believe it's 2/28. Now, one thing I wanted to mention on the TapaWhirl is I want to get a riser for this, and I'll show you why and what that is for those that don't know. But for example, this has a tap tempo button right here, and it's hard to tell this on camera, but I'll try to show you. If I want to tap on this, these knobs for the Xerograph Deluxe are right in my way, and I don't want to be crunching those. So they actually make little ramps, like a little metal riser that I can put up here, and it's a kind of a wedge so that I can wedge this front end up in the opposite of what the pedalboard angle is, and that way you can see how it raises that tap button up. And another advantage of that is once that tap button is raised, I can run the cables underneath the pedal and kind of hide them. So in my case right now, these are just slightly too short to make it, but by the time this is risen up in the air and I can run them underneath, that's going to work just fine. So we're good on length there. And then finally, we need to run our output. Oh, sorry, we have loop 6. I almost forgot. That's going to be our volume pedal. And loop 6 is right below where we just were. So we'll plug those in. And I'm not going to plug them all the way in because you get the idea by now. But anyway, these are 2/58, and these would run to the input and output of our volume pedal. And there's a little bit of extra length there, but that's okay. And then our last and final cable would be our output of the whole strip down here. And that's going to go to the input on the Starlifter. So my plan there is to run it kind of a roundabout way just to make the length correct, and that's going to run around and into there, and that'll go under that TapaWhirl as well. So kind of hard to picture, and it's obviously messy right now, but that's how the audio would look. Oh, and then I guess we have our expression pedal that goes there, and that's going to run across to right there on the Xerograph. So anyway, that's the audio routing. I'll get things cleaned up, and I still need to get a couple holes made for the power to come through from the bottom, and the Velcro down, and then some cool ideas I have for holding the cables down, and I'll show you that on the next part. So stay tuned, thanks for watching, and as always, like and subscribe, ask any questions below, and I'll see you on the next video.